Whenever you go to buy something that's on the shelf, someone has made a lot of decisions to bring that product to market. One of the reasons why some of the product is not as healthy as it could be is it's really hard to bring product to market. So we're solving the problem of how do you find a great manufacturer to work with? How do you find someone who has great packaging, responsible packaging? How do you find someone who's got great ingredients? Our belief is if we increase innovation, people will get healthier.
All right, guys, welcome to Financial Freestyle here on Yahoo Finance. I'm your host, Ross Mack. And look, guys, whether you're a professional on Wall Street, a retail investor, or someone that's just looking to improve their overall financial situation, there's always a first step you got to take. And guys, look no further because I'm speaking to some of the most influential players in the game in the world of finance and talking to them about their path to economic prosperity. And today's no different. I'm speaking with the Oisin Hanrahan, CEO and co-founder of Keychain.
Good to be here. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
No, thanks for being here, man. Obviously, like I said, when I first got to speak with you, your reputation precedes you. So obviously I did my due diligence, but to my audience, who is Oisin?
Sure. Happy to do it. So I'm originally from Ireland with a name like Oisin.
Nice.
My parents obviously didn't plan for me to travel very much, right? If you're going to name your kid Oisin, you're like, okay, he'll probably stay in Ireland, but I didn't do that. So I traveled around a bunch. I had a business in Eastern Europe, in Budapest and Hungary. Then I moved to Boston. I did a year at business school and then was fortunate enough to start Handy. And probably know a little bit about Handy. Handy's Uber for handyman and cleaners. I built that business for 6 years. And then I sold it to Angie's List, which you may have heard of. I was a CEO at Angi for a little while. I ran that all the way up to a public company. Then I took a little break. One day my wife said to me, hey, I don't know if you're happy anymore running this home service business. So I took a little break and decided to start another business. So recently I started a little company called Keychain. Keychain is a platform for brands and retailers to build and make healthier product and bring it to market. And we've been doing that for a year and a half now. So yeah, it's been going well.
That's epic. So full disclosure, I for sure had Handy on my phone when I lived in New York, my roommate and I want to say you started in like 2012, right?
That's right, yeah.
And so I was here living full time. That's when I graduated college, 2012. And so my roommate and I, shout out Jay, I remember us trying to find a cleaning person and we definitely downloaded Handy. But let's actually talk about what is your inspiration for Keychain now?
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks for being a Handy customer.
Absolutely.
You and Jay. Who was the messier one? Was it you or Jay?
We threw a lot of parties at the place, goodness. So it's a strong chance that it wasn't either. But
were the parties fun?
Always. Yeah, we made an entire business out of it. Experiential marketing firm. We started having fun, bringing brands and people together. That's the old days.
So Keychain is started with the idea that we walk through the grocery store every day, right? Mm-hmm. You go through the grocery store, and whenever you go to buy something that's on the shelf, someone has made a lot of decisions to bring that product to market, right? So whether it's you're buying a branded product or you're buying, an own brand product or a store brand product, someone has gone through so many decisions to make that product. And there are 1 million plus products on the shelves. Like you think about all the food, beverage, beauty, household, personal care, pet products you buy, on a weekly and a monthly basis. And what we figured is it's really hard to make that product. It's actually like a really hard exercise for someone to go out and bring that product to market. And I don't know if you've noticed, but a lot of the product that you might buy in the store, it could be healthier. It could be a lot healthier. Like you think about the perimeter of the store and you got all your healthy, fresh fruit and vegetables and produce and proteins. But the middle of the store, you got a lot of product that could be a lot healthier. And what we've realized is that one of the reasons why some of the product is not as healthy as it could be is it's really hard to bring product to market. Mm-hmm. So what we're doing at Keychain is we're building a platform that can make it easier for brands and retailers to launch the very best product they possibly can. So we're solving the problem of how do you find a great manufacturer to work with? How do you find someone who has great packaging, responsible packaging? How do you find someone who's got great ingredients? How do you pull all the pieces of making product together so that when you launch a product and you think about the timeline to go from, hey, I have this idea to launch a healthier protein bar or a healthier drink, to the product actually rolling off the shelf or rolling off the production line onto the shelf? How do you shrink that time so that people will innovate faster, so that people who have this idea, because look, I'm sure you're fortunate to meet a lot of incredible people, and I'm sure some of them come to you like, hey, I have an idea to launch a product. And what we want to do is we want to take that spark of innovation, and we want to make it so easy to bring product to market so that innovation happens faster. And our belief is if we do that, if we make it easier for, the big grocery brands to launch products, if we make it easier for, every person who thinks about like, hey, I really want to make a healthier product or a better product, if we make it easier for the bigger guys to launch products, that the product quality on our shelves will go up and the health of our society will actually increase because we'll have healthier food, healthier drinks, healthier beverages, healthier, beauty products. And I think we've seen some of that happen already. So we launched Keychain about 9 months ago. It went live on February 13th, the day before Valentine's Day. I wanted to wait till Valentine's Day. My co-founder was like, the thing is ready. Let's just get it out the door. But we launched it on February 13th. And in the first 9 months, we've had like we've been fortunate. We have pretty remarkable traction. So we've had over 20,000 brands and retailers engage with the product. In October, which I think is the last month we've released data for, we've had over $500 million worth of projects posted on Keychain. So over $500 million worth of projects posted on Keychain. We've indexed well over 1 million products. And we're starting to see those trends of people coming to the platform because they want to launch better product. And we've also seen pretty significant engagement from some of the very large players in the space. So most of the large retailers now have like some engagement with Keychain. We've had great brands like Hershey invest in Keychain. We've had General Mills invest in Keychain. They obviously have massive product portfolios, and the fact that they're putting their money where their mouth is to say like, hey, we want to be a part of this platform, which is going to make it better and easier for people to bring product to market, I think really speaks to what's going on in manufacturing right now.
That's remarkable. So put it like this, right? You and I both are fathers, right, of young children. And so prior to Keychain existing, right, say that as a parent, I want to have a healthy alternative, a fruit-based snack, right? Prior to Keychain existing, what would that process look like? Is it, I myself am mixing things at home, or I'm calling different manufacturers and trying to get it white labeled? Like, what did it look like before, and how does it look now?
So if you think about like what's happening when product gets launched, so first of all, put some numbers on. So there's about 1 million food and beverage products on the shelf in the US, like on the shelves. About, depending on how you draw the line, somewhere between 60 and 100,000 new products come to market every single year. Most of those products are like very minor iterations, so size change, packaging change, small flavor change. But a lot of those products are also truly new, innovative products. And those are launched by store brands. You think about the big retailers, whether it's Walmart or Target, or Amazon, or others bringing, their store brands to market. Some of the large players like General Mills and others are also like launching new product. But there's also a pretty significant part of the market, which you would call emerging brands. And that's people saying, hey, I want to launch a product. Like, I either think that I've got a great recipe, or I've got this like incredible insight on the market. So, I have a friend who is saying, hey, like, I think I have a really good insight on like a kid's healthy nutritional product. And those people are trying really hard to figure out, like, they're really pushing the envelope, right? They're trying to figure out like, what's the next innovation in product? And some of those products, they kind of just fizzle out, right? They go nowhere. They're an idea and they don't quite get off the ground. But some of those products, they catch a little magic spark. Mm-hmm. They hit a moment in time where people are like, yes, you know what? Prebiotics, low sugar, soda, Olipop, up into the moon. Like, just, they hit a moment in time where it just like catches and it works. And the same, you think about non-alc beer. I don't know if you drink non-alcoholic beer, but you think about what's happening with Athletic right now. Mm-hmm. Same thing. It's like post-COVID, people want to be healthier. They found an incredible way to make like a great tasting beer. And it's like, up and to the right, the product is just like selling like gangbusters. Mm-hmm. And for those people, they got to find real manufacturers. So there are over 20,000 manufacturers of food and beverage in the United States. Before Keychain, there was no way to figure out who could make what. There was like, you were calling, you were emailing, you were like trying to figure out like who can make a non-alcoholic beer, who can make a soda that's low sugar, that's like got prebiotics and probiotics in it. And you're out there on your own trying to figure it out. With Keychain, you can pick across any one of over 1 million consumer products that we've indexed, and we'll tell you immediately, here's who can make that product. We'll tell you immediately, here's all of the production processes that go into making that product. And we'll allow you to go through a make a product experience that helps you manage the relationship with your manufacturers, your ingredient suppliers, your packaging providers, your raw ingredient materials, all the way through to this product is made. So it's like this change in how people are going to make product. And we think that if we do it right, it'll increase the innovation that's happening in food and beverage, increase the innovation that's happening. Our belief is if we increase innovation, people will get healthier.
From Handy to Angie and to now to Keychain, I feel as though you have a real knack for connecting suppliers with demand, right? Yep. How do you continue to do that? What is your vision that, like, almost to your point of saying, when you're launching a food brand, you can have something that strikes right there and it goes up and to the right. How do you continue to innovate and think about things that way?
So you're right. Like building these platform businesses that are like software platforms that figure out how to connect different constituents, different groups of people. It's a real there's no one that teaches you how to do it, right? There's no hey, you go to school and you learn how to build platform businesses. You kind of just do it by trial and error. And certainly at Handy and Angie, we learned a lot. My co-founder Among and I learned a lot about how to build these platform businesses and how to build the software that supports them. One of the things we talk a lot about is the timing around building the platform. And if you recall, we started Handy, as you said, back 2010, 2011. And it was a very different time. Like, you think about what was in our favor when we started that business then versus now, it was a completely different employment environment. So it was much easier back in 2010, 2011. It was post-GFC, post-global financial crisis, to attract talent. So we could attract enormous amounts of labor relatively easily then versus, when we were ultimately exiting the business in 2018. The same is true now for this industry. So for manufacturing right now, there's a lot of tailwind. So you've got this enormous increase that happened during COVID because of the change in demand and because of the tax incentives that existed for investment. We have built more manufacturing capacity in the last decade than ever before. So America's sitting on more manufacturing capability than ever before. And a lot of that is lying idle. So there's a lot of excess manufacturing capacity in the country right now. The second is the supply side, the demand side. And I don't know if you've been to a grocery store and taken a step back and kind of thought, what did this look like 5 or 6 years ago? But the proliferation of product is incredible. My daughter has a nut allergy, and you rewind kind of 5, 6 years ago, there might have been 2 or 3 or 4 cookies that were truly nut free. Now you go in, there's whole sections that are nut free. There's whole sections that are dairy free and gluten free and oat free and high protein, and there's not a dietary restriction you can have right now where there's not an enormous proliferation of product. And I think that change in consumer expectation combined with this excess manufacturing capacity means it's just an amazing time to build a platform to pull all these pieces together. And then the last piece, which we're I don't know how many minutes we are into a podcast, but no one said AI yet. Yeah. Which it is a pretty important part of what makes Keychain work. So without AI, we would have had to spend millions and millions of dollars on building the data asset needed to start this platform working. Whereas instead, we utilized AI and we built the best data asset using AI, manual research, human research, and a lot of kind of inference. We built the best data asset in the world on U.S. CPG manufacturing in a relatively condensed period of time.
All right, we got to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to have even more with Oisin Hanrahan. All right, guys, welcome back to Financial Freestyle. We're here with Oisin Hanrahan. Look, man, I think, talk about like with this new administration coming in, right? We got tariffs, we got RFK coming in, when it comes to, effectively policing food and making things, wanting things to be more healthy. But from a tariff standpoint, right? Like I just went to the grocery store and I'm seeing things. I think I'm getting more healthy purely by just seeing the junk food that I normally would get priced at $6, $7, like just for a bag of chips. It's getting insane. But what do you think the impact on groceries and more importantly, your business will be if there are higher tariffs?
Yeah. Look, whenever there's change, whenever there's like a political change, whenever there's regulatory change, like people generally take a step back and they're like, okay, let's like reevaluate all the situation. Let's reevaluate our supply chain. Let's think about whether we're as well positioned now as we were before the change. And this is no different. So we already see a lot of people on Keychain searching for existing products they're already making. So this is people who are already making, if you're a popcorn brand and you make popcorn and you're making that popcorn in Canada, as an example, you're on Keychain right now and you're saying, hey, how do I search for a popcorn manufacturer, a co-man in the United States? And that's not to say if there's a small change in tariffs, that person's going to change to the US. But if there's a 20-25% tariff, the person's probably going to change their manufacturing location. Like we had one situation where we had a brand come to us and they were a US popcorn brand. They were importing the seasoning from Asia. They had US corn. They had US made bags. They were sending all three of those up to Canada. They were being popped, seasoned, sealed. They had Canadian outer packaging, so Canadian boxes, and then they were re-importing it back into the US and sold in a US retailer. And that's with a zero tariff environment. That is the most efficient way for them to run their supply chain, because that's what's I think it saved them 5 or 6% versus doing it in the US. If there's a 5 or 6% tariff, it's not going to change very much. They're going to say, okay, we'll leave it where it is. Like we don't want to disrupt the supply chain. But at a 10, 15, 20, 25% tariff, that company's going to reevaluate their supply chain and they're going to say, okay, well, why are we shipping it across the border? Like let's use a different set of supply chain actors to get this done. And we see that across the board, where we see a lot of brands and retailers coming to Keychain now, not just looking for a new product that they want to make, but instead reevaluating their old product with the lens, or not old, but existing product with the lens of, hey, if there's a tariff on Canadian imports or Mexican imports, what does it look like for me to have a US manufacturer for that? The other thing we're seeing related to change in policy, change in regulation, obviously there's been a lot of talk about artificial colors, artificial flavorings, and a crackdown or a change in terms of like how we might adjust the regulation to be more assertive on removing artificial flavorings and artificial colorings. And what we've already seen is people doing a search to say, okay, I want to make this existing product, but I want to make it without these particular flavorings. So can I source a different flavoring provider, or can I source a manufacturer who has already moved away from certain flavorings? I mean, you've got differing food regulations in the US and Europe. So there's certain places where people are saying, okay, well, could we use a European flavor profile or a European flavoring or coloring in the US instead that might be more compliant with new regulations. But the overall theme, whenever you've got this regulatory change, is people taking stock and saying, all right, am I worse off or better off? And how do I position myself to be as flexible as possible in this new environment?
Mm-hmm. So one, right, is just like you say, changing of the guard, kind of wait and see. But I would be remiss if I didn't ask some questions that our audience would probably be able to, learn from. Obviously, we have a lot of entrepreneurs watching. And so you built a brand, that being Handy, had an exit, ran a massive business, that being Angie List, now Angie, and now you're doing it all over again. So what advice would you give to an entrepreneur coming up, right? Because I would imagine the way you're approaching, Keychain now versus how you approach Handy might be, completely different.
Yeah. I mean, look, a few things. One is at any moment in time, there are like these waves of change happening in the world. So whether it's think about like over a long period of time, like there's been a shift to mobile, there's been a shift to AI, there's been a shift to some of the platform businesses, the social platforms. There's currently, a shift to a healthier lifestyle, we'll call it. There are these like enormous waves that are going on, and figuring out where you can play in these waves of change just makes it a lot easier, right? So, it doesn't mean you have to be like a trendy business, but if you're going against one of these waves versus if you're riding a wave of change, it's just a lot easier. So going into a growing market, going into something that is going in the right direction in terms of the overall market, in terms of regulation, in terms of political environment, in terms of, the overall sentiment, it just makes it a lot easier to build a business in that environment. The second one is figure out who you want to work with. So I'm very fortunate. I've worked with the same co-founder now for a very long time, and we don't have we unfortunately don't have complementary skill sets in that we're both quite good at the same things, and to a certain degree, it would be better if we had less overlap in our skill sets. But the reality is, the trust that we've built is so much more important than that skill set. So if you're going to work with people and you're going to build something over the long term, building a trusting relationship with your co-founders, building a trusting relationship with your business partners is, I think, one of the most important things you can do. And then the last one is, it's more a personal one. Building companies is hard. Like you're running your own thing. Like you get it. Like doing these things where you're taking risk, where you're going to work odd hours, where you're going to have less flexibility. You might have more micro flexibility, but less macro flexibility. It's hard, and you got to have the support of those around you. So your significant other, your family, like they got to buy in too. Like they got to buy into this idea that you're going to go do this thing. And I think it's kind of cheesy and corny to say it takes a village, but it really does take a significant base of people supporting you if you're going to truly be successful over the long term. Because it's not always going to go up and to the right. It's going to go it's going to go up and down and up and down. And on the days when it goes down, are you going home to people who are like, well, I told you shouldn't be doing this? Or are you going home to someone who's like, you know what, let's, grab some food, we'll put on some TV and we'll call it a night, and we'll plug it all out, and tomorrow we'll plug it back in and we'll reset and you can go all over again. And I think having that emotional support in your life, again, it's not like you can't do it without it, but it just makes it a whole lot easier if you've got someone who's got your back and is like, yeah, like I'm rooting for you. And I think over time that compounds in your favor, right? That really compounds in a way that you might not even appreciate, like in the first year or 2 years, but 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years in, you'll realize like, hey, having someone who's supporting me or having a family that supports what I'm doing, it matters. It matters a lot.
All right, guys, that's it for this episode of Financial Freestyle. I truly want to thank Mr. Oisin Hanrahan for actually coming, man, and joining us today. And I hope this gives you guys something to consider when you continue on your journey to financial freedom. Be sure to join us next week for a brand new episode here on Yahoo Finance.
This content was not intended to be financial advice and should not be used as a substitute for professional financial services.
Welcome to Living Not So Fabulously.
We all have something money-related that we want to hide.
Our podcast brings you these stories.
Living Not So Fabulously from Yahoo Finance drops on your favorite platform every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time.